Good morning, students. Today we are starting our section with the structure and function of ear. So, ear is a statoacoustic organ. Statoacoustic organ means what? It helps in hearing and also in balancing. Two functions. Which are the functions? First, to help in hearing, and second is to help in balancing of a person. So, our ear can be divided into three parts. An external ear, a middle ear, it is given here middle ear, and an inner ear. External ear up to this much, middle ear, all these regions, and inner ear, this region. These are the different parts of ear. So, in this section, we will learn in detail about all these parts. First, we can learn about the external ear. External ear mainly two parts. One is pinna. This is the outermost region of ear. The pinna communicate with external auditory canal. What is that? External auditory canal. External auditory canal is also known as auditory meatus. Spelling AUDITORYMEATUS. So, external ear consists of two parts, two regions, pinna and external auditory canal. So, first we need to understand about pinna. Pinna is the outermost region of ear and it is composed of elastic fibrocartilage. Elastofibrocartilage. And this is covered by a perichondrium and skin. This pinna is composed of elastic fibrocartilage, where it is elastic fibrocartilage, and that cartilage is covered by perichondrium and skin. That's only about pinna. What is its function? To trap the sound. We usually see in old people they put their hand around that pinna and try to trap the sound because as the age goes on the hearing ability will decrease. So for trapping the sound, the old peoples usually used to hold their pinna towards the source of sound. So that's only about pinna. Then next is about the external auditory canal. External auditory canal, what is shape? First we need to tell about the shape. Shape is like a funnel-like shape. Do you feel it's a funnel-like shape? Anyway, we need to understand the shape is like funnel. And this external auditory canal ends up where? Near the tympanic membrane. This is the tympanic membrane. And the external auditory canal ends up near the tympanic membrane. And this external auditory canal's length, what is its length? It's about 25 millimeter. What is its length? 25 millimeter. And inside this external auditory canal present numerous ceruminous glands. Spelling CERUMINOUS. Ceruminous glands for secreting earwax. What's the significance of earwax? Earwax protects our ear from the infections of any microbes that may enter the ear from outside. So earwax is a good thing. Most people commonly put something into the ear to remove the earwax oftenly as they feel some itching. It's not that much good. Earwax is actually a good thing for protecting our ear. So it should be there. If it is impairing the ability to hear, then only we need to go and approach some doctor to remove that earwax. Otherwise, we don't need to. Actually, we never go to never attempt to remove that earwax. Okay. Next, that's about the external auditory canal. Next, we are going to learn about the middle ear. Middle ear. This is the middle ear. This reddish region. This is the middle ear. What are its parts? Tympanic membrane is there, tympanic cavity is there, ear ossicles are there, and eustachian tube is there. All these structures, all these are points you need to write when you are writing about the middle ear. So we need to understand about each one. Tympanic membrane. This is the tympanic membrane that we can see in almost green color, tympanic membrane. What is the specialty of tympanic membrane? Is there any special slide for that? Okay. Tympanic membrane is a shape is oval shape, tympanic membrane. Otherwise, it's called a eardrum. Shape is oval, 8 millimeter wide and 10 nanometer high. And it have a concave side and convex side. The concave side, here we can see, concave side is facing towards the external auditory canal or auditory meatus. The other side is facing to the tympanic cavity. Tympanic cavity is a cavity that's seen here. So that's about the tympanic membrane. Shape oval and its size 8 millimeter width and how much height about 9 how much where is it 10 nanometer height. So that's about the eardrum or tympanic membrane. Next part of middle ear, the bones. These are the smallest bones in our body, right? Name which are the what are the name of that bones? Malleus, ingus and stapes. Here we can see malleus is there, ingus is there, stapes. These are the is the smallest bones that found in the body of a human being. So what's the role of these tympanic bones? These bones actually transmit the sound vibration towards the inner ear. What is its role? To transmit the sound vibration towards the inner ear. That is the role. And this malleus bone is in close contact with the tympanic membrane. And the malleus ingus stapes bone is in communication, close contact with the oval window. Oval window is otherwise called fenestra ovalis. You need to learn that term. Fenestra ovalis. So that's about the bones that's found in the middle ear. Which are the points that we learned here? Malleus, ingus, stapes, and the function. What is this function? To transmit the vibration of sound waves to the inner ear. Then specialty about the position of malleus. Sorry, not malleus. Ingus. Ingus. Not ingus. Stapes. Stapes is communicated with in close contact with the oval window. It is otherwise called fenestra ovalis, and malleus is in close communication with the tympanic membrane. So I think you understand about first tympanic membrane. It's a shape, oval, size, and its position. Concave side is facing towards the external auditory canal, and the convex side is facing towards the tympanic cavity. Then we learned about the bones present in the middle ear, malleus, ingus, stapes. Its function to conduct the vibration to the internal ear, and its communication is position wise. It communicates with which all other parts. Malleus is communicate with the tympanic membrane, and malleus stapes is in communication with close contact with the oval window. Oval window is otherwise called fenestra ovalis. I think you understand. Okay. Next, Eustachian tube. Eustachian tube is the last structure, last part of middle ear. Eustachian tube, here we can very clearly see. This is the Eustachian tube. Eustachian tube. What is its peculiarity? It connects the middle ear to pharynx. Middle ear to pharynx. In that way, ear is communicating with mouth. To some extent, we can say in that way. Pharynx position is very close to mouth, and it is a communication point between the ear and our what we can say ear, and then digestive tract. There's the possibility for communication with the respiratory system. Also, there is some possibility for communication, right? Because pharynx is a common passage for air and food. So in that way, ear is communicating with pharynx through Eustachian tube. Understand? So that we can see here in this picture. This is the opening of the Eustachian tube to the pharynx. Okay. So up to here we have learned about external ear and middle ear. Next is internal ear. Internal ear, we are going to see about the very complex and important parts of the ear. All the parts are important. So, about the internal ear, first point we need to understand membranous labyrinth. Here in this picture, we can see some semicircular C-shaped canal rings or canals. That canals are called membranous labyrinth. What's it? Membranous labyrinth. So, inner ear consists of one important, mainly two important components. Among that important components, one is the membranous labyrinth, and the other one is called bony labyrinth. So, we need to understand about all this structure. What is membranous labyrinth? Membranous labyrinth is the interconnected membranous canals. These rings we can call it as interconnected membranous canals. These interconnected membranous canals seen in the internal ear are called membranous labyrinth. And then what is bony labyrinth? This membranous labyrinth have a case, a cover towards its outer side. In this picture, we can see it in the light pink color over this blue area. That cover is called bony labyrinth. So I think it's very clear to you, membranous labyrinth and bony labyrinth. Membranous labyrinth is the interconnected membranous canal seen in the inner ear, and bony labyrinth is the cover over that membranous labyrinth. Then another two terms also here, perilymph and endolymph. These are two types of fluids, and where we can see these fluids. First, we need to understand about perilymph. Perilymph is the fluid present between the membranous labyrinth and bony labyrinth. Where it is present, this is the membranous labyrinth and this is the bony labyrinth. In between them, there is a space. That space, a fluid is present. That fluid's name is perilymph. Understand? Between this membranous labyrinth. Membranous means this blue portion, and that light pink portion is called a bony labyrinth. And between this bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth, there's a space and is filled with a fluid called perilymph. And what is endolymph? Endolymph is the fluid filled inside the membranous labyrinth. This is the fluid present inside the membranous labyrinth. So, next is vestibular apparatus. Next point we have to understand is vestibular apparatus. What is vestibular apparatus? Vestibular apparatus, actually the membranous labyrinth consists of vestibular apparatus and cochlea. What is it? Vestibular apparatus is actually a part of membranous labyrinth. So, membranous labyrinth consists of two parts called vestibular apparatus and cochlea. So, we are going to learn about vestibular apparatus. In this picture, we can see vestibular apparatus here and cochlea. Cochlea, this one. Vestibular apparatus here and this part is the cochlea. First, we need to understand the function of vestibular apparatus. Vestibular apparatus is mainly concerned with maintaining equilibrium of body. So that's why some persons are falling faint because of the problem with the vestibular apparatus. They lost the ability to maintain the body balance. This is an abnormal condition relating with the vestibular apparatus. Okay, so we are going to see that. This semicircular canals. 3 semicircular canals we can see here. These semicircular canals are arranged right angles to each other. Each one is arranged right angle to the other one. That is its arrangement. And towards the tip of each canal, there we can see a bulbous portion, swollen end. That swollen end is called ampulla. What is it? Swollen portion is called ampulla. And also associated with this to another sac-like structure we can see. They are called utriculus here, utriculus and sacculus. So, 3 semicircular canals arranged right angles to each other is present. And end of each semicircular canal, a swollen portion we can see is called ampulla. And along with these swollen portions, 2 other sac-like structures we can see, they are called utricle and sacculus. So these are the points. Function we know, to maintaining the balance of the body. And semicircular canals, its position. Then utriculus what? Sacculus what? What is ampulla? So we are in next slide we are going to learn much detail about all these points. We are going to see about the ampulla. Ampulla, what is? It is the swollen end portion of semicircular canals. This is one semicircular canal. Its base we can see that bulbous swollen portion. That swollen portion, bulbous, that entire swollen portion is totally called ampulla. And we are going to see what are the structures present inside the ampulla. Inside the ampulla, there is a receptor organ called cristae. There is one receptor organ called cristae. This is the receptor organ. That cristae is a cluster of, in this picture very clearly we can see, it's a cluster of hair cells. Inside the ampulla, we can see a receptor organ called cristae. That cristae consists of cluster of hair cells. The hair-like projections of this hair cell is embedded in a gelatinous mass. Its name is cupula. What's the name? Cupula. The hair-like projections are embedded in a gelatinous mass called cupula. Then, what is the significance of this ampulla? Whenever we rotate our head, that is sensed by this ampulla. Orientation of the head. If we turn the head, rotate the head, it is sensed by the ampulla. As we rotate our head, this hair cell may bend. And this bending causes initiate some stimulus. And that stimulus can pass through the vestibular nerve to the brain. That's the function of ampulla. If we rotate our head, that results in the displacement of the sensory hairs in the fluid present in the ampulla, which stimulates the vestibular nerves. So, in that way, our brain senses the orientation of our head. Next, I think you understand that. Next, we are going to see about utriculus and sacculus. These are also sac-like structure seen associated with the vestibular apparatus near to the semicircular canals. For remembering this structure, I am going back to this slide. This is the utriculus and sacculus. They are also swollen structure seen associated with the semicircular canals. Then we are going to learn about the structure, internal structure of utriculus and sacculus. They are also fluid-filled chambers. They are also fluid-filled chambers. Here, what is the significance? It sends the linear acceleration, not rotation. Linear acceleration of the head. Linear movement of the head is sensed by utriculus and sacculus and send that message to the brain. So, what is the structure? It contains patches of sensory hairs. Patches of sensory hairs. That hair cells are called macula. They are called macula. It projects into a gelatinous fluid. That hair cells is projecting into a gelatinous fluid. And in this fluid, we can see some crystals. That crystal's name is otolith. Calcium carbonate crystals. These crystals are of calcium carbonate. That crystals are called otoliths. As we move our head linearly, these crystals may fall over these hair cells and cause these hair cells to dislocate. And this dislocation, movement, bending of this hair cell initiates impulse on the vestibular nerve and is conveyed to brain. So that's about the utriculus and sacculus. It sends the linear movement of the head. So we covered the vestibular apparatus. In the once more I will repeat. In the inner ear, first we understand that main parts are membranous labyrinth and bony labyrinth. And this membranous labyrinth again we can classify into two major regions. One is vestibular apparatus and the second one is cochlea. Vestibular apparatus we have covered till now. Vestibular apparatus important parts are three semicircular canals, ampulla, utriculus and sacculus, and its inner regions, inner structures of ampulla and especially utriculus and sacculus, and what are their functions. Ampulla is mainly concerned with the rotation, this movement of head, and utriculus and sacculus sends the linear movement of the head. So next we are going to see about cochlea. Cochlea, what is the function? It is the region responsible with the sense of hearing. That part, with the help of that part, we hear the sound. What is its shape? It is a spirally coiled tube, 2.5 turn. It has 2.5 turn. One, 2 and a half turn. So somewhat snail shell like appearance. Function sense of hearing, and the shape is spirally coiled shape. And it is composed of three parallel channel. Three tubes are present together, arranged together parallelly. Cochlea consists of three tubular channels arranged parallelly. Here in this section area we can see that tubes 1, 2, 3. Three tubes are there, tubular channels are there. So next we are going to understand about each type of channels. What is its name? What are their role? What is their position wise significance? All those things. The upper channel is called scala vestibulae. That name you need to learn. Upper channel's name, what's its name? Scala vestibulae. And this scala vestibulae or upper channel is communicating with the oval window. Oval window, which in turn is communicating with which bone of middle ear? Malleus ingus stapes bone of middle ear. So that's about scala vestibulus. And the base channel, lowermost channel, it is called scala tympani, or otherwise called tympanic channel. That channel is communicating with which window? Round window. That also opening towards the middle ear. So scala vestibulae or upper channel is communicating with the oval window. Lowermost channel or basal channel called scala tympani is communicating with the round window. Both these windows are opening towards the middle ear. And one more point, this scala vestibulae is communicating with the scala tympani by an opening here. Its name is helicotrema. Now, then what's the name of this middle channel? Middle channel. It's called scala media, or otherwise called cochlea duct. That's about the three different types of channels. Then next is a detailed structure of a cross section of this cochlea. Three channels we can see here: scala vestibulae, scala media, and scala tympani. Then scala vestibulae is separated from scala media by a membrane called vestibular membrane or Resinus membrane. What's the name of that membrane? Scala vestibulae is separated from scala media by a membrane, this brownish portion called a vestibular membrane or Resinus membrane. Similarly, scala tympani is separated from scala media by another membrane. It's also shown in brown color here. It's called basilar membrane. And the space inside the scala vestibulae and scala tympani. Both these spaces are filled with perilymph and only the scala mediae is filled with endolymph. Scala vestibulae and scala tympani is filled with perilymph and scala media is filled with endolymph. Then we can see some other structures here. This is the main part that is helping to hear sound. So next slide we are going to learn about that. That part is called organ of Corti. Organ of Corti, actually it is located where? Inside the cochlear duct. Inside the cochlear duct present the main organ for hearing, that's called the organ of Corti. What is the significance? It sends the sound, the sensitive part of ear for sound. Then we need to understand about its structure. Here also we can see numerous hair cells. This orange colored region. In 4 horizontal rows. 1 row, second row, third row, fourth row. The hair cells are arranged in 4 rows. And all these hair cells are resting on the basilar membrane, which separates the scala media from scala tympani. Understand? I am remembering what is basilar membrane. It's a partition, separating membrane between what? Scala tympani and scala media, right? Okay. Then hair cells, 4 rows of hair cells are present. They are resting on the basilar membrane. And kinocilium, what's that? That hair cell bears some elongated cilia. That elongated cilia here we can very clearly see. On the tip of the hair cells, we can see some elongated cilium. That elongated cilium with a bulbous end, they are called kinocilia. Here we can see that. Kino, Kinoclia. Kinocilia we can see here. And also some microvilli. Smaller villi also we can see. And these microvilli are called stereocilia. They are called stereocilium. Next, auditory nerve. Auditory nerve we can see base end of the hair cell emerge a nerve. Base end of this hair cell is synapsing with a nerve. The name of that nerve is called auditory nerve. That auditory nerve is then passed over to brain for making the hearing sensation. That's about the structure of ear. So, external ear we have learned, middle ear, internal ear. External ear, pinna and auditory canal, middle ear, tympanic membrane, malleus incus stapes and eustachian tube. Then internal ear, mainly membranous labyrinth and bony labyrinth. Membranous labyrinth again divided into to their vestibular apparatus and cochlea. Vestibular apparatus is mainly concerned with balance, and cochlea is for sound sensation. And in the cochlea, the major organ for sensing sound is organ of Corti. Next, mechanism of hearing. What is how we are hearing the sound? When the sound waves reach our ear canal, we reach up to the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane, you remember what's its position? Where? It is almost yes, at the end of the external auditory canal. The sound signal reach up the tympanic membrane. It vibrates. That vibration moves the ear ossicles, small bones present in the middle ear. And that vibration then pass to oval window. From the oval window, that vibration is passing to the perilymph of scala vestibula. Perilymph of scala vestibula means first channel, upper channel of cochlea. Then a movement may happen for that fluid and it pushes the basilar membrane towards the scala tympani. That movement, that pressure pushes the basilar membrane. That membrane separates scala tympani from scala media. So that basilar membrane they experience a push like movement, and that causes the hair cells of scala media of organ of Corti, and that hair cell move in relation to the tectorial membrane. I forgot to tell you about that. Here we can see a tectorial membrane. As the cilia move bent against the tectorial membrane, at that moment a stimulus is produced, and that stimulus is actually conveyed to the auditory nerve. I forgot to mention about the tectorial membrane. Okay, and we can return to this slide. The hair cells move in relation to tectorial membrane and results in the bending of that cilia that present on the margin of hair cells, results in the synthesis of electric potential, and that potential is passing to the auditory nerve and it is passing to the auditory cortex on both sides of the brain. Understand? Once more, sound was reaching ear canal, reaching tympanic membrane, vibrates the ear ossicles, and then the vibration passed to oval window. From oval window, it reached perilymph of scala vestibulae, pushes the basilar membrane towards the scala tympani, and this causes the hair cells of scala media of organ of Corti to move. That its movement in relation to tectorial membrane results in the bending of stereocilia and creates a electric potential, and that potential is conveyed to auditory nerve fibers, and from the auditory nerve fibers it reaches on reaches to the auditory cortex on both sides of the brain. I think you understand that. Okay. For sensing the that sound, we need to activate numerous hair cells at the same time, and there's a range for a human ear to sense the sound. There is a sensible range of sound waves, especially towards our ear. That range falls between 20 to 20,000 hertz. And in this picture, you can see that as the sound waves reaches, the vibration of this bones is conveyed to the oval window, because that vibration, the oval window is bulging towards inside, and that pressure is moving towards this direction, and through the opening present here is moving in this direction and pushing this round window outwards, bulging out. This is oftenly happening whenever we hear a sound. As the fluid present in the scala vestibule move, it exerts pressure over the basilar membrane, and that pressure results in the movement of hair cells that present in the organ of Corti that is located in the scala media. And the dislocation of the hair cell against the tympanic membrane generate the electric potential, electric action potential, that is conveyed to the auditory nerve to the brain, auditory cortex of the brain. Next, in this slide, we are going to see the detailed mechanism that is happening in hearing. Okay, so we can start seeing this video.
The sense of hearing is accomplished by a process known as auditory transduction. The ear converts sound waves in the air into electrical impulses, which can be interpreted by the brain. As sound enters the ear, it passes through the external auditory canal, where it meets the tympanic membrane.
The sound waves are reaching up to the tympanic membrane that we can see here.
The tympanic membrane then vibrates in response to the sound. Sounds of a lower pitch, or frequency, produce a slower rate of vibration. And sounds of lower volume, or amplitude, produce a less dramatic vibration. Higher frequency sounds produce faster vibrations. The tympanic membrane is cone-shaped and articulates with a chain of 3 bones.
This is the tympanic membrane. It's communicate with malleus, incus, stapes. Stapes is going and communicating with which window? Oval window. Oval window is communicating with the scala vestibule of which one? Scala vestibule of cochlea. Okay.
Called the auditory ossicles. They consist of the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. The movements of the tympanic membrane vibrate the ossicles, passing on the information of frequency and amplitude. The 3 bones pivot together on an axis shown here in red.
That movement.
The pivotal axis is due to a series of ligaments which hold the bones in place within the middle ear cavity. The anterior malleal ligament and the posterior incutal ligament are of particular importance for the pivotal axis.
Telling about the ligament.
2 structures which normally obscure this view of the middle ear have been removed. They are the chordae tympani nerve and the tendon of the tensor tympani muscle. Through the ossicles, the vibrations of the tympanic membrane are transferred to the footplate of the stapes. The stapes moves with a piston-like action, which sends vibrations into a structure called the bony labyrinth.
Here we can see that stapes is pushing that oval window. That movement may create some pressure, and the oval window bulges towards inside the scala vestibule.
Labyrinth. The labyrinth is filled with a fluid called perilymph. If it were a completely closed and inflexible system, the movement of the stapes would be unable to displace the perilymph, and therefore unable to send vibrations into the bony structure. Due to the flexibility of a membrane called the round window, the stapes movement can displace the perilymph, allowing vibrations to enter the labyrinth.
Here we can see that the oval window is bulging towards inside and the round window is bulging outwards.
The corridor leading to the round window is found within the spiral portion of the bony labyrinth known as the cochlea. Vibrations produced by the stapes are drawn into the spiral system and return to meet the round window. The portion of the spiral passage in which vibrations ascend to the apex of the cochlea is called the scala vestibuli. The descending portion of the passage is called the scala tympani.
Tympani.
A third structure, called the cochlear duct, is situated between the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani. The cochlear duct is filled with a fluid called endolymph, and when viewed in cross-section, the membranes separating the two fluid-filled systems are visible. They are Reissner's membrane and the basilar membrane. The membranes are flexible and move in response to the.
Here we can very clearly see this is the vestibular membrane, and this is the basilar membrane. This is the organ of Corti here.
Vibrations traveling up the scala vestibuli. The movements of the membranes then send vibrations back down to the scala tympani.
With that vibration,
A specialized structure called the organ of Corti is situated on the basilar membrane. As the basilar membrane vibrates, the organ of Corti is stimulated, which sends nerve impulses to the brain via the cochlear nerve.
We can see nerve impulses are passing through here.
The actual nerve impulses are generated by specialized cells within the organ of Corti called hair cells. The hair cells are closely covered by a structure called the tectorial membrane. As the basilar membrane vibrates, the tiny clusters of hairs are bent against the tectorial membrane, triggering the hair cells to fire.
The bending of hair cells.
The entire basilar membrane does not vibrate simultaneously. Instead, specific areas along the basilar membrane move variably in response to different frequencies of sound. Lower frequencies vibrate the basilar membrane closer to the apex of the cochlea, whereas higher frequencies produce vibrations closer to the base. This arrangement is known as tonotopic organization.
Depending upon the pitch amplitude of the sound, different regions of cochlea will be.
Together, this sequence of events is responsible for our acoustic perception of the world around us.
Okay, that's about the mechanism of hearing. Next is hearing impairment. Hearing impairments are of two types: conductive hearing impairment and sensory neural hearing impairment. Conductive hearing impairment, CONDUCTIVE, conductive hearing impairment. Conductive hearing impairment means actually that defect is associated with the middle or outer ear, and that problem we can surgically correct it, because we can rectify that defect. That is such type of defect are called conductive hearing impairment. And there is one more type, sensory neural hearing impairment. That sensory neural hearing impairment, actually that defect is relating to the inner ear, and in such cases is not possible to surgically correct. In that cases, the person need the help of some hearing aid. And deafness and labyrinthine disease. What is deafness? Deafness means complete inability to hear. And what is the reason for deafness? If a person couldn't hear any sound, that means that that person's cornea is affected, damaged, or his or her auditory nerve is affected. It is not correctable. Almost all cases. Next is labyrinthine disease. Labyrinthine disease means there's some infection or inflammation is happening to the membranous labyrinth. So such condition, such type of defective condition are called labyrinthine disease. with this we can finish to today's section and this chapter. I know today's section is somewhat lengthy. Anyway, I just think that with this I can finish this chapter. If I break this section, then there is not much enough topic for making another segment for this chapter. So that's why I make this section this much lengthy. Sorry. Anyway, thanks for listening to this section. So next class we can start a new chapter. Okay, thank you.